Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. I am John Schmeelk. Today we are joined by Jordan Ranaan. He covers the Giants and has for how many years now, Jordan, have you on the beat?
Too long. I mean, we're over a decade now, so I think I came in the middle of 13, the great Josh
so it's your
Freeman
fault
game.
everything's gone wrong
So,
since then,
my
much.
friends say that all the time. They're like, would you do the Giants? To be fair, I came in the middle of 2013, and they were already 0-5 that year.
Okay.
So they were already going downhill. They actually finished strong that year.
They did.
About it.
They did.
Yeah, but it hasn't been good since. So
Now-
this is season 13.
Now, you have written a book. It's called The Franchise New York Giants, a curated history of Big Blue. Check it out at all your favorite bookstores. And I'm going to ask you a very basic question. Jordan, what's your book about?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's really a focus on the Super Bowl years. It's really mostly just fun stories from the Super Bowl years. So essentially, we do a quick overview of the history of the franchise. A lot of it through the eyes of John Mara, who was very generous with his time. And then each section is about the Super Bowl year. So the 4 Super Bowl wins plus the 2000 season, which was a fun one to actually go through. That it was a very fun team. And we were actually just in Detroit recently, and Lomas Brown was the guy.
Yeah,
they all push the chips in the table.
Him
in
and
the middle of the
Tiki
table,
were heavily
Fossil.
featured in that chapter. Him
Oh,
and
yeah.
Tiki, yeah.
Lomas Brown was great because he was apparently like a team captain on that team and very well respected. He was a veteran offensive lineman. They had like a makeshift veteran offensive line at that time. And he was telling me, and he was probably, I think, the first one to tell me, when Fossil did the famous push the chips in the table, in the middle of the table, we're going to make the playoffs, like I guarantee it kind of deal. He said that Fossil actually had told him he was going to do that before he did it. So it was kind of a planned approach by Jim Fossil that year. And so it was that was a fun chapter to do, actually, a lot. Because, it's interesting when we were younger at the time. So, yeah, we kind of knew what was going on, but you're not fully invested. Sure. And it was a different world. So you're not, it's whatever you read and can get your hands on at the time in 2000 or even, especially the 80s, forget about it. Of
course.
So the history that you remember is like a very broad history, and then sort of actually go over it and hear the actual stories of the things that happened was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of designed like an oral history where it's told through the voices of people that were involved, and I like how it's separated into sections. You have the 86, 90, 2000, then a 7 and 11.
Yeah. You can almost read them separately and just jump in and,
absolutely.
and read at any point, which is, I think, good. It makes like a coffee table type of sound.
I want to go back to that 2000 season because that was one of my favorite chapters too. And you said it was pre-planned. But the front office didn't know that Jim Fossil was going to do that, which is one of my favorite parts. He goes up and he goes, "Guys, this is what I just told the meeting." They're like, "You did what now?" And I remember I was in college then, and I was hosting our dopey Cheap Seats Monday, Friday night WNYU sports radio show. And I laughed when he did that. And I remember I'm like, hold on a second. They're in first place. They're 7-4. They're playing the Cardinals this week, who are terrible. The rest of their schedule was easy. This wasn't exactly like we're 2 games back, but I'm guaranteeing we're winning the division here.
That was part of the deal. A lot of the guys thought like it was so pre-planned. Like, hey, this is a good spot to do it. He had nothing to lose because he was under pressure. They kind of had to make the playoffs because the year before they kind of fell apart.
Yep.
And Wellington Mara was really ticked off at the way the season before ended and put them on notice.
He actually spoke in the locker room after the game.
Which he never did. They always said that. He was always there and always around, but he never did that. And he did that the previous year, and they knew it put everyone on notice. And so he did this pre-planned approach, and the guys were saying, like, he really had nothing to lose, even though by guaranteeing it, because either if they didn't make the playoffs, he was going to get fired anyway.
Right.
So now he looks like a genius because, hey, he did this great motivating tactic. But really, and Strahan was the one that said this, was like, really, what was he doing? He was putting his chips in, but that's really what the reality was anyway. He was going to be either fired if they didn't make the playoffs, or he would be a hero if they did make the playoffs.
And I like you kind of make the comparison in the chapter how the Giants have had this tradition of having really good coordinators and assistant coaches that have really helped them get where they need to go. And you kind of make the Landry Lombardi comparison to then John Fox and Sean Payton on that 2000 team, where both guys were head coaches for teams that made the Super Bowl. Sean Payton, in this case, win a Super Bowl later in their careers.
Yeah, very good. I mean, obviously, that's a really high-level coaching staff when you have Jim Fossil. I mean, Jim Fossil is the head coach with Sean Payton and John Fox
not bad.
running the two sides there. And so for sure, I mean, and it was interesting to hear the 2000 group because there was some veteran guys there, the Jesse Armsteads of the world, and how when John Fox got there, there's a funny story about John Fox and leaving the Raiders and Al Davis. He basically just got up and left one day.
He's like, dude, I'm not dealing with you anymore. Yeah. I'm out.
Exactly. His wife, the story was his wife, he just came home in the middle of the afternoon with his son, and his wife was like, what are you doing home? Like, you sure this was a good idea? And no, he got that job with the Giants, and guys like Jesse Armstead, like, he came in there. They didn't love him at first. They were like, who is this guy? He's
Strahan tended not to like new coaches when they first came in the building. That seems to be a theme with him.
Yeah. Well, they end up liking him.
Correct, yes.
I believe Jesse, every year that he made the Pro Bowl in his career was with John Fox as his coordinator.
Yeah, and you tell a great story. Jason Sehorn making the big interception. Yes, you use a lot of excerpts from Papa's interview with Sehorn on the Papa's perspective.
Yeah, and because it was funny because I was having trouble getting in touch with Sehorn. So I watched, and he did a great job of like explaining every little detail.
And how he did everything wrong, but it worked out anyway,
exactly.
right?
And then Sehorn actually ended up calling me afterwards.
Did he really?
But it was the detail was so good in the video with Papa that I used it anyway.
Nice.
Even though he did end up calling me and getting in touch.
Yeah, so I thought that was a great chapter. What did you learn about the 86 and 90 teams that maybe you didn't know before you started writing the book?
Yeah, when you talk to like Harry about how it was kind of built up, like that was such a big deal for him to like get over the top. He had been there so long. Who was it? It was Harry and
George Martin.
Yeah. They were like the two long-standing veterans. It was always, there was such a big pull of, we have to do it for these guys.
Right.
And then just how much you knew they, I was 6 years old, in 85. So in 85, they lost to the Bears, right? And I didn't realize how much that game was important to the 86 season. Like, that was the game. They looked at that loss in the playoffs the previous year to the Bears as like the impetus for putting everything together the following year. And then how it was such a big pull for that team, like, hey, we need to get over the hump. How do we get over the hump? What can we do to get over the hump? And so that was really interesting to me. And then, the whole Gatorade story.
Yeah.
I kind of knew it. Like, you always heard, the 86 Giants invented the Gatorade dump. But really, like, going through it, like I said, I was super young. I didn't actually know they did it a couple of years before.
Jim Burt as like revenge on Parcells.
Yeah, Jim Burt
Parcells was the jerk.
Was ticked off at him.
Yeah.
And like that's apparently like the kind of thing like you had to be able to, like, Parcells always dished it. Right, so he had to be able. He was a big believer, and you had to be able to take it.
And he did.
Yeah,
he did.
That's what I mean.
Same
and
deal.
that when you stand up for yourself, that's how you like earned his trust. And you earned his respect. And so Jim Burt, like, that was his moment. Hey, he was picking on him, like, it was constantly on Jim Burt. And he did that, and then he earned his respect for that. And also the Parcells, hearing him, I mean, getting the opportunity to talk to him and hearing how important the Giants are to him, not just because he was the coach here, but because he grew up, like, it was, like, being part of the Giants actually meant a lot to him, even beforehand.
Yeah.
And to hear about how, he grew up this big Giant fan and how that part, that was so important to him. And that's why when, he got the opportunity to come here, it was like, oh my God, the New York Giants. And so hearing an older Parcells at this point sit there and reminisce about the lore of the organization was interesting. I didn't really know that, like that kind of detail about Parcells' background.
Huddle up, get in here. If you're lined up here, you gotta go over the middle with it to score.
Right. How do we make that happen?
I don't know, but Citizens does.
Make sense of your money with Citizens, official bank of Eli Manning.
And the part I like about the chapter on 90, we all know about the Belichick game plan, make the Bills run the football and all that stuff. But the way you talk about how he had to convince the players to go along with it because just their character was that, no, we don't give up rushing yards.
Yeah.
Like, and they had to Belichick had to convince them that was the way you win the game.
Yeah, for sure. That Giants defense, that whole stretch there, like that was a dominant Giants defense. And to like give up 100 rushing yards to them was like a cardinal sin.
Right.
So to like convince them, hey, this is what we're going to do. But then when he told them, hey, well, the idea is the second Andre Reed gets the ball, we're just going to hit him. And we're going to hit him relentlessly and hit him hard. They were like, oh, I think that kind of was like the sales pitch. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of enticing.
We
can sit back and just tee off on Andre Reed.
Banks had a great quote about something Reed said to him when he saw him like a couple weeks later. I forget what the quote was. It's like, I thought I was going to die or something like that.
Yeah, basically, I think he was on the field in pain after he hit him. And he kind of got up because he wanted to pretend he was strong, but he said like when he met him, like I think it was that off season.
Yeah, something like that.
He's like, dude, I felt I was gonna die on the field. That's how much pain I was in after you hit me. Like he remembered that specific hit and how much pain he was in.
All right, I did not get all the way through the 7 and 11 chapters yet. What was it about that 17 that jumped out to you that you thought kind of really made that group special and that you maybe, again, learned that you didn't know before you started going through that?
I think, you kind of remember, but like Eli, all said and done, wins 2 Super Bowls, great career, right? All these accomplishments. At the time, though, he was still not fully respected. And so going into the playoff run, it was actually Rondé did an interview, what a different world, with the New York Post and was like, oh, yeah, you just pressure him and you make him make mistakes. Like, flat out just came out and said that the week of the game. So, like, Eli really had to earn the respect of really not, and we're not, like, talking about just rivals, the whole league. And, like, you kind of forget about that because in totality, we're sitting here now, like, look, he's Manning. Right? He was Peyton's brother, Archie's son, and then he has this great resume, but you forget at the time. And I do remember early in his career, like Eli took a lot of hits. It was, it was very up and down, a lot of interceptions. It was a very rocky start.
Early in his career. What was it, week 10 against the Vikings of the Super Bowl year when Darren Sharpter picked them off twice? And, like, there was back page of the papers in New York, Daily News and Post, fire Coughlin, fire Corsi, and then they end up going all the way.
And that was a funny story. So I think it was Strahan and a bunch of those guys, they were at an event and they were talking about how when Eli kept throwing the pick sixes and they would get up and they would be like, think they have to go back on the field, and they ran it back and they would be like, hey, we just got the rest for like the whole game. And they were ragging on Eli about it to this day.
That's great.
About how funny it was. They're sitting on the sideline laughing that they don't have to go back on the field. They just keep resting. And Eli was like, no, I didn't find that funny. As he threw pick six.
Yes.
And also, like, the idea that Tom Coughlin almost got fired, and like that's a real thing. Like going into the 70s, like he had just made the playoffs 2 years in a row. Like the idea that he had to go fight for his job before that season, in retrospect, even to this day, is staggering to have to think about.
It shows you how expectations can change depending on the era that you're in, right?
11, seriously, 11's different now. The Giants wish they had that problem now, right? And then 2011, same thing. It was talking about his job being in jeopardy.
I know.
And so what does he do? He goes wins the Super Bowl again. But to hear him talk about it, I mean, him and John, like they didn't deny that, like they were fully like, oh yeah, he basically had to go beg for his job. Like he had to go up there, lay out a plan, or and to ownership. I'm talking about Coughlin in 2007, and obviously it works.
I think that worked out pretty well. And then heading into the Super Bowl that year, just managing the Burris thing, whether or not he was going to play in the game. Then you had Brady with the quote, about holding to a certain amount of points and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he chuckled
just
at
the back and forth
that they were only going to score 17 points. I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Right.
Yeah. We're not going to score. We're only going to score 17 points. Or something, whatever it was.
Because look,
Plaxico predicted the score, basically, right?
Yes, I mean, I don't know what you think. That to me, that Patriot team is still probably the best single individual team I've ever seen play before. The way they dominated that year,
crushing everybody. Like, I mean, they were just so good at everything. Like, there was nothing that team couldn't do. And that was a better version of Brady than young Brady.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Years when they were winning Super Bowls left.
Did the guys make a big deal in your book about the final regular season game too? How that gave them confidence for the Super Bowl? They did.
A lot of it. Yeah, and then I wrote about the phone call that John Madden gave. My buddy actually texted me the other day. He's like, "Oh, I love that story about the John Madden." I mean, that's been out there for years. But how he called and left a voicemail for Coughlin. And Coughlin left. He had that voicemail for a long time. I remember that.
Do you want the inside story of that?
What's that?
So I got a call about maybe a week after the Super Bowl. Schmeelk, Coach Coughlin has a voicemail, but he can't get it off his phone. Can you help us get off his phone?
It.
So I literally recorded it off his phone, created the MP3 file, and I'm the one that got it.
That's why everybody.
That is why it lives in perpetuity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all my fault.
There you go. There you go. That's pretty cool.
This is, it's the old phone system at the stadium.
Story.
Yeah, it's great. It was an unbelievable voicemail. I think I still have it on my computer.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and so that's obviously a great story. And then to get. For the book, I got the 7 and 11 offensive line. In retrospect, too, that's the amazing part of those teams that stands out. That offensive line, for an offensive line to stay together for that many years.
The same group in a 7 and 11, except for one guy.
Yeah, and even then, like, they were together for the most part before 7.
Correct. Yes.
You know, like
yes.
Mackenzie came,
Yes.
right? But the rest of them, like they were there, 6, 5, 4, like they all started coming there.
Mm-hmm.
So for a group to be primarily together for like 6 years as a whole,
Correct.
essentially, is like that's a crazy run. Like that just doesn't happen in today's NFL. And then I got them all on a Zoom call together.
Oh,
which
did
was
you
a lot of
really?
fun.
Oh,
And I was on like a text chain with that group, like to set it up for a while.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it got wild. I couldn't, and they just started ragging on each other like it was old times. Like some of the jokes they're making about each other, like that definitely could not make it on this show. By the way, I
can imagine.
It is not fit for really anything.
I
to
have
be
been in the
honest
room
you.
with those guys at the same time before, and it gets graphic.
Yeah, it was crazy. But then to have the conversation with them and be able to like chop it up with all of them, that was actually really cool. And the idea originally was to have a separate chapter for them all together, because I thought that stood out to me how unbelievably cool it was for that group to be able to stay together for that long, and how big and instrumental obviously they were to those two Super Bowl teams and that era in general. And they were gonna have their own chapter, but then as it started playing out, they're like, it's really a chapter for each Super Bowl team, like each Super Bowl year.
Right.
Like it didn't make sense to then have like, here's each Super Bowl year, and then here's something on the offensive line, so that we kind of merged it into the 2 chapters.
Yeah, and it was 2 guys. It was Seibert and O'Hara. They did not make it to 2011. The rest of the 3 guys did. 2011, I think people
Last
kind of
Mackenzie ever played.
Yeah, and the fact that, by the way, he played out that entire contract without them adjusting his contract once. I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. For that many years, it's unbelievable. Didn't change the contract once through the whole
I know
tenure.
someone else who I think did too.
Who's that?
Antro Roll. Because I remember thinking how
That's right.
ridiculous it was. That he
Shorter
played out his
contract, though.
too.
Shorter contract, though.
Okay.
But yes, but Roll did do that.
But
You're
yeah,
right.
that he actually played out, I think it was a full 5 years
Yeah.
of a contract, which these days in that generation was unbelievable. And so he was one of the guys that was actually there here when I first came, and he was a great guy.
Unbelievable guy.
If you want to know how to manage 2 minutes of crunch time football, I'm your man. But if you're wondering about a long-term financial plan, you should talk to Citizens. Hey, I can also talk lawn care.
I'd like to learn about a mowing routine.
Yes, I knew I could help.
Make sense of your money with Citizens.
I think people lump 11 and 7 into the same kind of group, right? They're like, those teams were very different.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 was very much more of a offensive-driven team with Eli and the receivers. 07 was more of a defense run game type of team. But man, that 11 offense, people sleep
They
on
were
that.
32nd in run defense that year, right?
They were
During regular
awful.
season?
Correct. And they got a little bit better in the postseason. Even their run
they
game
kinda
on
turned it on.
offense got turned on late in the year. But man, that was if you go through Eli's career, 11 was his best season. That was an MVP caliber season from Eli, especially when you look at how he played in the fourth quarters of that year. It was unbelievable.
Well, that's one of the things in the book is the whole Eli elite debate, and that was that year, and the fact that he went on and had that year, and then the NFC Championship game, which I'll maintain, and John Maris said, a lot of people say, like that's the best game he ever played. The NFC Championship game in San Francisco when he's just getting pummeled, he's coming up with clumps of grass in his face mask. Yeah.
I will still go Sub-Zero Green Bay 07. That's what I will go with.
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't remember the number of quarterback hits he took. Now, granted, just to be able to throw the ball in Green Bay in that game.
He outplayed. He outdueled Brett Favre.
Yeah, but just to be able to throw the ball in general is pretty spectacular. I think so. Yeah, him and Plaxico, they said they just kept running the same route.
Oh, against Al Harris, they abused Al Harris
over and over,
game.
just
Correct.
like a comeback route, like in the middle of the field, and then they said they just ran it all day, just kept running it over and over. But I just thought the pressure that he was under, because if you think about it, that 11 San Francisco defense was awesome. The front defense, that was the Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis,
Alden Smith,
the Smith
Justin
brothers,
Smith and Alden Smith.
not actually brothers,
correct.
but
yeah.
That the pressure. I mean, the number of hits that he took in that game was like close to 20, which for quarterback hits is an insane number. Yeah, anything in double digits is good.
Both teams had so many 3-and-outs in that game. At one point, I think the Giants had 6 straight 3-and-outs in the second half of that game.
Yeah.
But man, he peeled himself up off the turf so many times. And
He did.
The thing about Eli in that game, he might not have made a ton of plays that score points and won the game, but he never made a play to lose the game. And the fact that he didn't, and that was what made him so good in those 2 Super Bowl runs, right? He never turned the ball over in those 2 Super Bowl runs.
Which is amazing because that's like kind of different than the Eli.
Correct.
The rest of his career.
Correct.
Playoff Eli was just like almost like a different player than regular season Eli. So That's strange. But yeah, so there's a lot of Eli stuff in that chapter in particular because that run was on him more so than the 7 for sure.
100%.
Like I'm talking about the whole season.
Yeah.
Because like you said, that's when Eli was, I think, at his height. And then the whole Eli elite. So that's the interesting part. The first run, 7, it was Eli having to prove himself. The second time, it was Eli having to prove himself again, but this time that he's elite. Like that the first one wasn't a fluke, which is funny that it came back that way. And same with Coughlin again. You're going to get fired in 7. Oh yeah, by the way, you're going to get fired in 11. And then they both obviously come through in that way is like the ultimate, double middle finger Eli, like on the Manning cast. Like that's the football version of it. To be able to do that in that spot is crazy.
Anything else you want fans to know about the book?
Nah, just that it's a fun, quick read. I mean, it's a perfect gift for the holidays.
Around what, 250 pages, right, give or take?
Yeah.
I think it's around 250. Yeah.
272.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, we go by words, records. I had to submit X number of words. That's
how many words? How many words is it?
I don't remember. That was a long time ago. Submitted it like a year ago.
Oh, was it really?
It's one of those things when you submit it, you're like, man, this is off my chest. I remember actually. We were in Germany when I had to finish it.
Oh, in Munich, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, can you just give me a few more days? I'm going to be going to Germany.
So hold it up one more time so fans can see it.
The franchise, New York Giants, A Curated History of Big Blue. So it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere you get your books.
I can attest.
You can reach out to me. I got a bunch in my car.
I can attest it is a fun read. You guys should go check that out. All right, before we say goodbye, Jordan, real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of 4 games left for the Giants. Let's start here. What's on your checklist for what you want to see in the final 4 games for the Giants here as they run down their season after the bye?
I think you want to see Jackson Dart continue to play, continue to get better, maybe make slight adjustments. The hits is obviously a big thing. It's something he's going to have to learn. He's been a little defiant on it, but let's be honest. The most important thing for Jackson Dart going forward is going to be staying healthy.
Yeah.
So a big part of that is going to be to find a way to find the right balance. It's not about we don't want you to be aggressive. We want to stop your aggressiveness. No, it's like let's find a balance that works for you, right? I think every young quarterback goes through it, but he has to be open to it as well. So watching him play, Abdul Carter coming down the stretch here, it's been a rough go for him late this season. So how he finishes the season is going to be important to him, and just sort of, maybe getting the defense in order a little bit. It's been a real struggle for that defense this year. So just trying to get guys playing better on the defensive side so okay, you know what, maybe next year we do have something we can build around here with these guys.
And we are going to be looking at a head coaching search after the year. Even if they decide they want Mike Kafka back, by league rules, you have to have a coach. You have to do meet the Rooney Rule and all that sorts of stuff. How do you think the Giants are going to prioritize when they go through this head coaching search? What do you think is going to be most important to them as they try to find their next head coach? Yeah,
when you talk to people around the league, people who essentially, whether they're coaches out there who are looking at the job or, coaching agents who are talking to the Giants, the common theme that you hear, right, is that they want a leader in here, a voice that can command the room, somebody who, I don't think that, and I don't think this is speaking out of turn, I think most people would agree this is probably true. Previous head coaching experience, while probably not mandatory, certainly wouldn't hurt in a situation like this. Like this is, I think, there may be a young coordinator out there that blows them away, but at the same time, there is a benefit to having been through it before. Like this is a tough job. You're in the New York market. It comes with a little more pressure. There's people all over you. There's a lot that comes with this job.
Heck, whenever you're hiring somebody to do a job, if they've done that exact job before and they've done it successfully, that makes you feel better than hiring somebody that's never done that actual job before.
Especially in this market, though.
Correct.
I think
you're right. Absolutely.
So, the last 2 Giants, so 3 of the last 4 coaches, right? Because you got McAdoo. And Shermer had experience, but
not great experience.
Yeah, and it was in Cleveland, and he had trouble handling all the stuff, which is why it didn't make sense. But McAdoo was a first-time coach. Judge was a first-time coach. Dable was a first-time coach. Like, you can get overwhelmed, I think, with everything that comes with this job, with this organization, with the expectations here. So, I think you hear that, and it's got to be the lack of accountability has been a factor here over the past few years. So you hear, when I speak to players in the locker room, that's the one thing they say to me probably more than anything. Like, we need a coach who's going to hold people around here accountable. And I think you're seeing that right now with Kafka. He's trying to do that. It's a very short period of time.
Sure.
And I think that's why we saw Abdul Carter bench now for 2. Like, there needs to be a higher level of accountability, and that's what players say. So a coach who, I think that's one of his strong suits, maybe a stronger personality head coach probably will play in the favor, but they're also going to do a wide search. They're not, I don't think, and from everyone you talk to around the league, it doesn't seem like they're just like, oh, you know what? This is the only kind of coach they'll look into. No, they're going to look at a bunch of different coaches. I just think you have those qualities that certainly, I think, play to your advantage, right?
And depending on who the head coach would be, I imagine the first question in the interview would be, well, who's going to be the guy that you're bringing in to bring Jackson Dart along, right?
Of course. I mean, this is when you say what's the selling point of this team, that's like your number one selling point is Jackson Dart.
And that's why Vrabel bringing in Josh McDaniels in New England was so essential,
Huge.
right? Because no one's probably going to hire him away to be a head coach at this point. He's already failed at it twice, right?
Yeah.
So you have a guy in there that you know is good at the job that Vrabel brings with him. I mean, that's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, that is really the perfect scenario.
It really is.
Because you have a high-end, super high-end offensive coordinator.
That's not going to leave.
Who's not going to leave?
Right.
Yeah. But that thing about how hard that's pretty rare. Here's my thing with that. Just have a good plan. If you have so much success that the guy has to leave,
correct.
Take that problem, okay?
Yes, correct.
You worry about that later on down the line. And I heard that's
agree.
something that you're going to have to come in here and have an idea of who your offensive coordinator is, what happens if it goes, blah, 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 this and that, like that. That's something, those are scenarios that have to be talked about. But still, just get to that point. If that's the point where they have so much success that people want to hire your offensive coordinator, that means you had some good years. So let's get to that point in the meantime. But I spoke to John Gruden, who loves Jackson Dart, and he was saying how highly coveted and desirable this job is, and the number one reason, what he said, first of all, it's the New York Giants, a marquee franchise, but also Jackson Dart.
And coaches love Jackson Dart.
Yeah, because he's competitive.
He has all the things.
Talent, yeah. Yes. And he's that dude who wants to be good. He wants to be great. I shouldn't even say he wants to be good. He wants to be great, and he's willing to put in the time. So I spoke to somebody before the draft, and that's what they told me. They're like, he's probably a second-round talent, but by the time teams get through going over him, they're gonna be like, no, this is the guy I want to invest.
He aced the process, the whole draft process. He aced it, absolutely.
I want to invest in this guy and everything he has. He's the kind of guy that coaches want to work with, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely right, Jordan. Good stuff, my man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Enjoy the rest of the year. Jordan Raanan from ESPN. Check out the book, The Franchise, A Curated History of the New York Giants. I'm John Schmeelk. That's the Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants, from the Hack and Sack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. We'll see you next time, everybody.